Everybody, it's Anthony Brockton. I got a lady on the channel today that I'm super excited. Matter of fact, you know how I'll be honest with y'all, my viewers. We had, I think, attempted to do this before. Something happened, my timing or what have you. I'm an ordinary guy trying to do something extraordinary. And so I think I might be wrong, but this is the reschedule. But let me tell you something. As a result of that, and I know she vetted me. She saw a couple people on the show and so on and so forth. She said, man, I really want to be a part of what he's doing. And I like that because it is my mission through the people who come on the show for you to hear this history and wellness too. And hear and meet these people. And I'll say this. I had one person come on, and I think 1 or 2 weeks after they were here, they were on CNN. And I know I asked questions that CNN didn't ask because we got more time. And I try to get to the heart of it and let them talk. And so if I didn't say I'm Anthony Brockton and oh man, this is gonna be good today. This is gonna be gooder than good. This is gonna be phenomenal. So hit the subscribe button on Strong Inspirations. It's free. This is free Black history. I do it because it makes me a better person. And y'all watch because I figure it do the same for you. And then hit the like button. There is no love button. Hit the notifications bell for you to get a ding, a shot, a smoke signal, something to let you know there is new content on Strong Inspirations. And check this out, my friends. Tell somebody about this. You sitting around, you got all this information, and it's kind of amazing to me because I'm traveling a lot now that I've been places where somebody said, I'm watching your show. I said, oh, really? That happened to me the other day. I was in Beaufort, South Carolina, and someone said, I'm watching your show. I said, man, I didn't even know it because you never know. But my numbers is up. So, like I say, hit the subscribe button and all them other things. And then, as you might know, my friends, I'm a filmmaker. I'm serious about what I do. This is the documentary that I did a number of years ago, Business in the Black, on the rise of Black business in America. I took it to over 40 cities across America. I got a short story. I know the lady, she's busy, and I gotta tell you this because this is mind blowing. I got a call yesterday from somebody out of San Francisco who said that I gave them a business card 10 years ago. I said, really? He said, man, I kept the card and you popped up in my mind. I called you because I want a copy of the DVD. I don't have but 4 copies left because DVDs is extinct now. It is streaming on Amazon. And then he wants to have me on some podcast out of San Francisco. I'm getting somewhere, everybody. Then I took it to another level and I wrote the book on it. And in my estimation, and I ain't the only one who said this, this is America's #1 Black business history book. There is no other book as thorough and easy to read. Over 200 facts, and some of them the guest is going to allude to, because this is what we're going to talk about in some respects. But she's more scholarly than me, and I'm sure it's going to get deep on us. Watch out, everybody. Sit back and be ready for this. But get you a copy of the book, and let me tell you something. I'll be honest, I'm trying this. I cut the big Amazon man out. I'm going to try to get y'all just to go to my website, businessintheblack.net. And one more moment, I do a lot of speaking. I've been in New York, I've been in Philadelphia, I've been in Florida, I've been in Beaufort, South Carolina. I'm having, and all this is on my website, and I got my own festival along with the Museum of Mount Bayou, Mississippi, which was one of the premier pillars of our Black community and still is in terms of Black township, started in 1887. I interviewed, look on the show, look on the feed, the guy who runs the museum. I said, man, I ain't even never been to Mississippi. I want to come down because I'm in Detroit. I want to come down. He said, man, come for Founders Day. And we expanded what they're going to offer. So that's July 10, 11, 12, and 13, 2025. Come and meet me. Get you a copy of the book. And then on Friday night, we're going to do a two-step and drink some moonshine, everybody. We're going to have a good time. But other than that, during the day, we're having these seminars and sessions. Now, you hear me use this term strong a lot. Strong is my favorite word. In my world, strong stands for strength, tenacity, resilience, and a sense of oneness, nobility, and grace. And that is my introduction to the good looking lady, to everybody on the channel today. She's smart, she's a scholar, she all them things. Come on, introduce yourself. Thank you for being on with me. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for that introduction, that very gracious introduction.
Yes. What's your name? Tell us your name.
Well, I am Justine Hill Edwards, and I am an associate professor of history at the University of Virginia. And I am a specialist in African American history, the history of slavery, and I call myself a historian of Black economic life in America.
I love it. Now, there's one
Mhm.
thing you alluded to, and this might be your humbleness. You didn't say doctor. It's just doctor, right?
Oh, of course. If
Oh, everybody, did you
from
hear that? I bet you when you wrote that paper, they didn't even read it. They just said, "Come on, come on
Well,
over."
when I talk to my mother every day, she answers the phone, "Good morning, professor." So,
I
yes.
love it. Yeah, because that's a huge accomplishment.
It
Was that
is.
something that you always wanted to aspire to? Do you think?
Oh, it's a good question. No, I mean, I constantly say I'm as surprised as anyone that I have a PhD in history, that I'm a professor, and that I teach and write about it, speak about African American history. But I'm really fortunate and blessed that I found this path, and I'm really, again, fortunate to be on it.
Because where did you grow up? What city did you grow up in?
Well, speaking of San Francisco, as you just mentioned, I was born and raised across the bay in Oakland, California.
Oh, okay. In a
Hmm.
black neighborhood.
Yeah, West Oakland. I actually just learned maybe a year ago that in the same neighborhood as Kamala Harris. And so, yeah, born and raised in West Oakland, a predominantly black neighborhood. Yeah.
um, as a result of that, and being, I'm taking liberties here, being a smart kid in a black neighborhood, is there a dynamic there where other people wanted to hold you back? You know what I'm asking?
Um,
Or I know
yeah,
your
I
parents
mean,
didn't, but other people, we kind
yeah.
of do that to each other.
I mean,
What's your,
I didn't feel that way, and I think I was really fortunate. I was always the student who wanted to do well, did well in school, wanted
yeah,
to
yeah,
win the awards, wanted to be student body president, and I was really fortunate, especially being in predominantly black schools up until I was in fifth grade, where I had gotten that confidence and kind of understanding that there was nothing wrong with me wanting to be smart and kind of aspire to bigger things. And so again, I think I was really fortunate because when I was in middle school, starting in sixth grade, I went to the suburbs to a predominantly white school. And as we all know, middle school can be the best of times and the worst of times. And I was really lucky and fortunate to have a community around me that was constantly pushing me and supporting me in kind of whatever dreams and aspirations that I had. And so from there, I ended up going to private school, to boarding school. And that was an idea and a dream that I could not have imagined. And again, I was fortunate in that my family saw my potential and not only kind of push me and encourage me, but kind of really embrace this process and what it and the potential that it could have had for my life. And it was a life-changing experience and one that I think put me on a very different path.
sure.
But a path that I think led me to really feeling like as a Black woman from a working class family that I could achieve great things, that I could compete, and that I could build confidence in knowing that I could compete, which I think is incredibly important.
That leads to this question. Okay, so you go from a black school, then you go to the white school.
Hmm.
Are you quiet in the white school saying, "Oh, let me get my feeding, my footing behind me. Let me let me understand the different dynamic of growing up with white people." And
Mm,
yeah, yeah. How did that go? What is that dynamic? May I
sure.
ask?
Um, I'm not sure if it was just kind of me as a person, the specific school that I was in, but I think one of my real strengths as just me being Justine is that I can be pretty happy in a lot of in environments. And so I learned quickly how to adapt, how to find friends that I felt comfortable with who didn't care that I was Black, and found kind of communities where I felt like I could thrive. And so I was in the band and was playing an instrument, and I was on student council, and I just felt like if I could do this as a Black student, then I could do anything. And so again, I was really fortunate in that I had a really positive experience, but I also think a lot of that had to do with just me being able to be nimble and kind of recognizing that like, yeah, I can fit in and there's nothing wrong with me. And if anything, I have everything I need to succeed.
Well, I'm gonna stay on this just a tad because it's good information. I want people to kind of
Yeah.
understand this. How did you not lose yourself as a Black person in that spirit?
Yeah.
Because and I know we, both can attest. In some instances, we move our kids to the suburbs, and then now they not Black anymore. And
Yeah.
I mean I say that uh, figuratively, not literally.
Hmm. Hmm.
But because they now have to adjust to their surroundings and the music and the lifestyle, they have to try to ask mom and dad for the better gifts and things of that sort. You get where I'm coming from.
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
did that work for you?
I mean, my family's Black. And so, I mean, I didn't have a choice. It was really understood for me that I had to take advantage of all the opportunities that I had at my disposal. And perhaps that me being Black was an advantage because I brought a perspective that a lot of my classmates just didn't have. And so it wasn't about losing myself or questioning the fact that I was Black. It was about knowing myself well enough to know and being surrounded by family that really instilled in me a sense of confidence in who I was as a person, as a young person, especially as a young Black girl.
Oh,
And that confidence was and has continued to be incredibly important because going on to predominantly white institutions, going on to an B League institution for my PhD, those experiences could have been challenging in a way that really crushed my sense of self and self-esteem. And
yeah,
it was
yeah,
incredibly challenging.
yeah,
But I am really blessed and fortunate to have friends and family who reinforce my sense of self and kind of help me feel like, again, I have the tools that I need to be successful. And that was
yeah.
incredibly important.
I'm gonna stay on this just a tad because this is good stuff. Did you ever? Do you understand code switch? I'm sure.
Absolutely.
And so, do you do that? Is that something that you have to do?
Sure.
Yeah.
I think less now, less now probably. Um, but yeah, I mean, of course, code switching, going from my boarding school and coming home and being around my friends and family, of course. But I also think my friends and family understood that my path was going to be a different one. And so I never got any kind of hazing about it at
Oh,
home.
really?
No, I mean
Yeah.
they understood that like Justine perhaps has something special. And
Oh,
so we want
really?
to foster that and cultivate that. They asked me what I was reading, what I was doing there. Oh, you play lacrosse. What's lacrosse? Right.
Yeah,
And
right.
so it was
Yeah,
like
exactly. Yeah.
and over the past, I don't know, 30 or so years, it really has been an experience of kind of bringing my family along with me. So, for
Yeah.
example, when I studied abroad in college, I was a Spanish major, and when I spent a semester in Spain, my family came and visited me.
Oh, I
When
love it.
I was doing research for my PhD in Barbados for a month, they came to visit me.
Yes.
And so it's been a process of them kind of seeing all of these amazing experiences and me wanting to share those experiences with them as well.
What was that pressure on you though to succeed?
Yes, but it wasn't a stressful type of pressure. I mean, there
Really?
was a certain point when they stopped pressuring me and pushing me because I was pushing myself.
Okay, okay, I got you.
Um,
I got you.
if anything,
Yeah,
now
yeah.
they say, Justine, take a little break.
Oh
Say no to
yes.
a few
Okay,
things.
okay.
Are you
Uh,
relaxing? When are you going on vacation? So those types of
yes.
things. Yeah.
Well, let's go back just a tad in this regard. Do you know where the slavery is in your family and how y'all got to California?
Well, I do know how I got to California. My mother is from Massachusetts. My mother and grandmother's my mother and my father's side of the family are actually from the Northeast. And my mother went to California in the 70s because she wanted to be a Black Panther. So
Oh,
that's how we landed
really?
in Oakland. But recently I've come to learn that my family is from North Carolina and Virginia.
And so that might be where the plantation was in either one of those states.
Yeah, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Yep.
Um, Given your brilliance, and I'm using that for sure. Did why Black history?
Mm.
Because Black history doesn't, and I don't mean no harm in this. It doesn't pay like if you were an engineer or a doctor, or, you know what I mean. Some of the other things.
Hmm.
Was there hesitancy on the other people when you said, "Hey, I just want to study history"?
No, I mean, again, this all goes back to my family. They were first and foremost advocates for education. The bare minimum was that I get good grades. And they really wanted me to go to college and graduate. And so I did. I went to Swarthmore College, and they were fine with that.
No,
Um,
hold on, stop there. What college?
Swarthmore College, it's a small liberal arts college outside of Philadelphia.
All the way from California, you found that school.
Well, I knew I didn't want to go to school in California because, again, it's a big world. I wanted to explore it. Um, and so I only applied to schools in the Northeast because that's what I wanted to experience. And so I applied to and got into Swarthmore, and it is a very small but very competitive and rigorous school. But I had an amazing experience and made amazing friends. And there, my family's goal, my goal was to for me to graduate. I was expecting actually to go to law school. And so after I graduated, I worked at a law firm in Philadelphia for 2 years. And it was an interesting experience. If anything, it was one of the most formative experiences of my life, most certainly of my career, because it quickly showed me that I didn't want to go to law school. Just seeing what the kind of ins and outs of practicing as a lawyer at a big firm was like, I knew that that's not what I wanted to do. And I remember very clearly I had taken the LSAT and was wondering kind of what I would write for my personal statement, and I couldn't write anything because I really didn't know why I wanted to go to law school. It seemed like the kind of next step.
Right.
But I kept thinking about kind of in college what I really enjoyed doing, and I really enjoyed reading, writing, being in seminar, talking about history and art and novels and race and politics. That's what I really enjoyed talking about. And though I wasn't a Black Studies major, I took a lot of Black Studies classes, and I knew that that's what I wanted to do and study. I wanted to study kind of our history.
Oh, let me stop you
And
there. I don't mean
yeah,
no disrespect. You took those classes at that liberal arts college?
absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, so they had those there. And
Hmm.
was it a predominantly white school?
Yeah, a predominantly white school,
Okay, but
but
they
Black.
had some liberal attitudes and taught history and stuff like that.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah,
Okay, I
yeah.
got you.
Black Studies was a fairly popular major, and the classes were fascinating. And so, for example, I took a class called, I think, The Religion of the African Diaspora with a professor, Yvonne Choureau. And I'm not sure if you've seen the film Sinners,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
but
yeah.
she was one of the historical consultants on that film.
Oh, okay.
And so, yeah, and so I took African American history with my now mentor, Allison Dorsey. I took African American literature, religion. I took kind of race economics in America. And so all of these classes really informed what I wanted to do and study. I was really interested in studying Black history. Um, and unfortunately, I wasn't quite ready for a PhD. I mean,
Yeah, yeah, sure,
that's a separate a conversation about kind
sure.
of what it
sure.
means to be ready for graduate study, but I ended up getting a master's in African diaspora studies from Florida International University in Miami. And that was another kind of transformative experience. It was the first time since probably se a second or third grade when I had predominantly Black professors, and it was transformational.
At that liberals art college.
Oh no,
Or
at
this is at the
Florida,
masters.
Florida
Okay, I got
International
you.
University.
I
Yep, in
got you.
Miami.
Yeah. Now let's go back. Just one more quick question. Back in the
Mhm.
early days, did they teach you Black history in? I know you got it in the home because you say mom was the Black Panther, so
Mhm.
was she did she have Black history flags all over the house? You know what I mean? Black Panther stuff, and
We
that
had a lot
that
of
got you
books.
into this somewhere that you look back on it.
No, I mean, yes, she had all of that. I read a lot of novels, though. I read a lot of Toni Morrison when I was a teenager.
Okay,
But no, I mean, I really didn't like history, if I'm being entirely honest. I wasn't interested in Black history. I wasn't interested in being a historian. It really wasn't until I got to college where I started to more embrace it, more to think about kind of what it meant to be Black in America, what it meant to be a Black woman. Um, and I mean, I will say, interestingly enough, I have always been interested in money. And
yeah.
I was interested in kind of these conversations, even though I didn't know it at the time. I was interested in conversations about like r- economic inequality along racial lines. Like I didn't understand why everybody that I knew who had money or was wealthy was not Black. And so I couldn't articulate it then, but that had been kind of percolating in my mind really since I was in middle school.
I got a question that just came to mind. I mean no harm in this. Did you ever wish you were white, growing up in them white world? You know what I mean? And you saw all these rich white, and
Sure, it's a
you
good
just said
question.
it, and you saw these rich white people, and then you saw the Black people that when you went back
Hmm.
home to
Hmm.
Oakland, you said it was in the hood.
Hmm.
You see the hood stuff.
Hmm.
You might have said, and I'm putting words in your mouth. Excuse me. I don't want to be in this hood. Did you ever say that one day?
I mean, I never said I didn't want to be Black. I mean, I never thought anything was wrong with being Black or my Blackness. I just wanted to live a life where I could travel and take care of myself and my family and see cool, have great experiences and share those experiences with my friends and family. That's really what I
Okay, I
wanted. I
got you.
wanted safety, I wanted security, I wanted to
Yes.
travel, I wanted kind of the
So
freedom
you
to
never
do
thought white people were better than Black people?
never. No.
Okay, I got you.
No, because I never
Yeah, I got you.
because if anything, I mean I saw the good and bad in everyone.
I got you. I got you. Yeah, I got you. And as a result of that, when you study Black history, so much of Black history is not good,
Mm,
for lack of a
mhm.
better way of putting it. I mean,
Sure.
there's and but you have found okay. How do you deal with the not good every day when you're talking about it? I'm sure that's not your dynamic. But if
Mm,
someone is teaching Black history, they talking about we got beat down in slavery, then he did this when we tried to start our own business districts, and he burned it down in Tulsa and all across America. How do you digest that?
sure. Um, I mean, I think that there are kind of positive and negative aspects of life. I mean, that's kind of studying history, and it just depends on your perspective. And so, for example, my recent books, Savings and Trust, on the history of the Freedmen's Bank, like I tell the story in the introduction. We're talking about the formerly enslaved. We're talking about African Americans recently emancipated from slavery. This is a period of extreme kind of promise and hope. It is also a period of extreme kind of racial violence, as I say in the book, economic violence. And so you can tell both of those stories holistically, I think, at the same time to give the reader, I think, a more truthful understanding of what happened in the past. And so it can't be all positive, it can't be all negative there. There has to be nuance and texture. And so that's the type of historian that I am. I'm really interested in that texture and that nuance to show both kind of those hopeful moments, but the real challenges that my historical actors face in the period that I study.
What's the good in that? Tell us the good stories of the hope that Black people had
Sure.
coming just coming out of slavery.
Yeah.
How and then also how they had money. A lot of I talk about that in my book. How did they have? They were hopeful. They had some money. Yeah. That's yeah. Go ahead.
Well, I think to answer that question, I kind of have to go back.
Yes.
So when I started my PhD at Princeton, I realized that the project that I wanted to work on were called slave economies. And these are the economic activities of the enslaved. And that may kind of seem oxymoronic, like, right? We often think of slavery as being this oppressive regime, and it most certainly was. But
Yes.
there were many instances, especially in South Carolina, which is the focus of my first book, where I found all of this evidence of enslaved men and women um, having money, buying goods, buying kind of things for themselves, trading with poor whites, trading with their enslavers. And so they were constantly thinking about ways to make money, not for their enslavers, but for themselves. And so it kind of disrupts our understanding of how we think about money in this period, how we think of the enslaved having money in this period, and therefore what that tells us about the period of freedom, right? And so African Americans who were formerly enslaved come into the period of Reconstruction, which is after the
I got to
Civil War.
stop you. I
Yeah,
mean, I'm
yeah,
sorry. How
yeah.
did they have money? How did enslaved people have money? Yeah.
I'm, I mean, they especially, I mean, this is kind of great. There's a lot of really interesting evidence that in places like Charleston, for example, if you think about like the public marketplace where people would buy fruits, buy vegetables, buy fish, buy livestock, a lot of that stuff was sold by enslaved women.
Oh,
And
really?
yeah, and
Now
so
you go. Okay.
right? And so all of this economic activity one might think was illegal, but interestingly enough, it was not. And
Okay.
oftentimes, enslavers were encouraging this type of economic activity.
Okay. They could do it after they picked all the cotton for the day, or they
Or
some of them,
rice. Yeah, yeah,
or
yeah.
whatever. Yeah, after they
Yeah.
did the field. So let's say you wake up in the morning, you go out and you pick your so many barrels,
Mm-hmm.
or now it's not harvest season. Maybe they might
Mm-hmm.
allow them to do it a little more effectively non-harvest season.
Mm-hmm.
Correct? Maybe.
Most of the time it was on Sundays, and that was the day that they
Okay,
had
okay,
off. Mm-hmm.
okay. So the day they had off. So then the enslaved person would then be able to. Where did they get the fruits and the vegetables and the livestock?
They would often grow them
I
next to
got
slave cabins, especially in places like in South Carolina and the Low Country and the Georgia Low Country and
you.
the
Yes,
Louisiana, they would
yes.
have garden plots next to their homes, like
Okay,
the slave cabins. And
okay,
so an enslaved family might plant squash or pumpkin or have like a pig or have chickens, and they would use that time to kind of cultivate gardens and tend livestock to help them support themselves in terms of food, but also to use whatever they grew to sell to whoever would buy it or trade for it.
okay. Now we rolling now. Okay, so he would let them do that,
Yeah.
and then they would and they could trade with other enslavers or
Yep.
whoever wanted to buy from them.
Mm-hmm.
They had to come home at night though to get back in
Sure.
the cabin to get ready
Mm-hmm.
for Monday to go
Mm-hmm.
back to working in the field.
Yep.
Okay. Then
Mm-hmm.
uh, they could get money. Would he take the money or they could keep some of the money?
Oh, you broke up a little bit. Ask
Yeah,
that
I
question
know.
again.
Yeah. Okay, so they went out and did it on Sunday, then they had to be ready for work on Monday. Well, he would let
Absolutely.
them keep, I'm sure it's all different ways, but he would let them keep some of the money.
I mean, it de depends. Sometimes they would come to an agreement about the enslaved person paying the enslaver a certain amount of money for the privilege of doing this type of work.
How did the enslaved person had this garden? They would
Hmm.
then go out and they would work in the market and stuff like
Hmm.
that. Uh, could they be in the market beside? white people who were selling their fruits and vegetables, maybe?
Sometimes.
Okay.
Yeah,
Then
yeah.
they would go back. The enslaved would say, you can keep some of the money. Why?
Hmm.
What would they use their money for?
They would the enslaved, you mean?
Yes.
They would buy sugar, they would buy tobacco, they would buy liquor, clothing, hats, shoes. They would buy passes sometimes to go see loved ones or relatives.
Oh,
Um,
really? Oh,
they
I never
might
knew that. Yeah,
they
okay.
might save it for a rainy day.
Yeah, okay.
Um, what I thought going into the project was that I'd find all of this evidence of the enslaved um, saving enough money to buy their freedom. But
Yes.
I found that few and far between. The majority of the evidence I found was just enslaved men and women kind of making enough money to buy goods that they wanted and needed. And so I'm talking about clothing, shoes, food, tobacco, sugar,
Okay.
that type of stuff.
As we move up the timeline too, the
Hmm.
part about there being a bank.
Yes.
What did the enslaved people do with the money before the bank? They just kind of kept it in the sheets of the bed, hid, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, kept it hid, digging holes and putting money in holes next to trees and forgetting where the tree was or the tree
Oh,
being kind of bring.
really?
So yeah, I mean, it was a very in general, it was a very kind of unstable, kind of informal a system of saving, if you can even call it that.
Had you heard of black people pooling their money together prior to the bank? Was there like a informal banking institution among enslaved people?
Yes, I mean, especially in big cities, then in the increasingly free North. And so, beginning in the late 18th century, in places like Boston and Philadelphia and New York, there were kind of free Black communities who came together to establish benevolent organizations, kind of
Right.
community organizations to help provide kind of civics of support for members of the Black community in these cities. And so it was not uncommon for these organizations to serve as kind of informal financial institutions. They would pool money um, to kind of help a member of their organization pay for a funeral, pay for kind of medical expenses. And so those were the types of kind of informal financial institutions that they invested in. But interestingly enough, when we talk about the idea of savings banking, the first savings bank was established in Philadelphia in 1816. And the first depositor of that bank was actually Black. And so African Americans were kind of trying to find ways to save money and put their money in safe institutions. But in this period of time, it wasn't just African Americans. Banking really before the 1860s was just incredibly unstable and unpredictable.
At that time, you put your money in the bank, and did it give you a little interest on the money? Did the
Yeah, a little
banks
bit.
invest the money? Did they have a check that you could, or you just went in there and showed them your card, give me a little bit of my money back? That was
Exactly.
kind of the
Hmm.
extent of the services.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, savings banking or banking in general was kind of like savings bankings were savings banking was supposed to function as a way to prevent poverty among the poor. But interestingly enough, depositors were oftentimes using these accounts as we might like a checking account, like putting in money for a short period of time, perhaps not even long enough to earn interest, and then taking it out to buy what they really wanted. And so, in with the Freedmen's Bank, this is kind of what we see happen as well.
Now, so who came up with the idea for the Freedman Bank?
Mhm.
Is that white people saying we're gonna be nice to you and really help you out?
Yeah, I mean, essentially.
Okay, okay,
So the Freedmen's Bank was established by a white minister and abolitionist named John Alvord. And he was from the North. He was educated at Yale, and during the Civil War, he was living in New Jersey with his family. He takes the opportunity in 1864 to travel around the South with the Union military, and he kind of talks to as many freed men and women as possible because he kind of wants to know what they're looking forward to in this period of freedom. And they say that they want to be reunited with their families, but they also want land. And so he sees the success of three military savings banks that were established in 1864 in Beaufort, South Carolina, in Norfolk, Virginia, and in New Orleans. And these military savings banks were established for Black soldiers.
Oh,
They were incredibly successful in the first like 6 and 7 months, such that
hold on. Let me stop you there. When you say, yeah, what does successful mean? Yeah, yeah.
well, Black soldiers deposited about $260,000 of their pay into these banks in the first like 6 and 7 months. To today, conservatively, that would be about $5 to $6 million, which is a lot of money.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so John Alvord, who's white, who is a Republican, so he supports Lincoln. Um, he travels to New York at the beginning of 1865 and introduces the idea of creating a savings bank for the nation's freed people.
And he's just a regular individual who says this.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
he's a minister, he's an
Yeah.
abolitionist, he's not a banker, he's
Yeah, and
not
he's
a
not a
finance.
politician.
No,
Okay.
no.
Is it hard for the government to buy into it initially? Is that what you're coming
No,
from?
no. I mean, it actually went fairly quickly, and so that first meeting in New York was June, excuse me, January 27th, 1865. Um, it's a bill is introduced before Congress in February. It passes both houses and it arrives on Lincoln's desk on March 3rd, 1865, and it's the day before his second inauguration. And so it takes about 5 weeks to go from this kind of grand idea to Lincoln kind of signing it into existence.
Are there branches of the Freedmen's Bank? It's headquartered where? And then are there branches that kind
Mhm.
of go through the South? Where?
So the main office from 1865 to 1867 was in New York because that's where most of the bank's trustees resided. But the bank quickly expands, kind of piggybacking off of those three military savings banks. And so in its first year or two, there are branches in major cities in the South with really prominent Black populations. And so we're talking about Washington, D.C., Richmond, Virginia, Norfolk, Virginia. We're talking about Raleigh, North Carolina, Savannah, Georgia, Tallahassee, Florida, as far west as New Orleans, St. Louis. And so they're at its height in 1872, there are about 37 branches in 17 states. And so it grows fairly quickly.
Are these standalone buildings, or it's not like they have a window in a gas station or something like that? Are these standalone buildings?
So some branches were in other buildings, and so the bank just rented space. There were other branches where the trustees just decided to buy entire buildings, house the bank branch in kind of one part of the building, and then rent out to other businesses in other parts. And so that actually becomes one of the major problems with the bank is that one, it expands really quickly, right? Um, Two, with each branch, the bank has to pay the branch cashier, branch manager, to operate the bank, and so the bank's expenses balloon really quickly.
Oh, is
Mhm.
who is the like the first president, the national president of Freedmen's Bank? Is there one person like
Mhm.
that, and then there's a board of trustees?
Yes,
Yes, yes.
there was a president. His name was Malhon Hewitt. He was a businessman and a manufacturer in New York.
He's a
Um,
white guy.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
At first, for the first 2 years, the bank's board of trustees, its executive committee, the branch cashiers are all white. Um, and so this is kind of where the bank kind of runs into a problem. And so at this moment in American history, savings banking is seen as really being like a philanthropic venture. You'd have major capitalists, entrepreneurs, and politicians kind of sign their name to be affiliated with these savings banks because it's seen as being an act of philanthropy. With the Freedmen's Bank, though, the difference is that this bank grows really quickly, and depositors, black depositors, are putting millions of dollars into the bank, and so it kind of operates for just a short period of time as like a philanthropic, like a not-for-profit, and it has to be run as a for-profit institution based on the fact that the bank is so big by branches, so many depositors, and it's taking in so much money.
Are all the depositors black people?
About 90% of the depositors are Black, about 10% are white, interestingly enough. And that's because of the marketing campaign that the bank's white administrators kind of go on. They advertise in Black newspaper papers across the country. They're really good about kind of tapping into Black kind of political voices in certain cities. And the Freedmen's Bank at this period of time between 1865 and like 1872 is seen as really being one of the most stable financial institutions in the nation because of its perceived safety and security, especially since kind of Lincoln signed off on the bank kind of being established.
I've always thought, and evidently this is not the case. The Freedmen's Bank was actually initiated by the government, but it wasn't. These are private individuals. Is that correct?
Yes, this is a private institution, and it received a congressional charter to operate nationally. And so this was
Okay.
one of the first banks in American history to operate with a kind of a national banking charter, meaning that it could have a main office in one city, but operate branches in other states.
Do black people eventually get involved and become employed and kind of change the face of it, where maybe they're the tellers and that kind of thing?
Yes. And so the bank's first Black trustees joined the board in 1867, and that coincides to when the bank's main office moves from New York to Washington, D.C. And so it's at this period of time that the first three Black trustees, who are ministers in Washington, D.C., kind of begin to encourage the bank to hire Black cashiers. And the first Black cashier actually joins in 1866. He's a man named C.S. Salvin, and he is the cashier of the New Orleans branch.
Did you see any documents, original documents from the Freedmen's Bank, literature, papers, deposit slips,
Mhm.
that
Yeah,
kind of thing?
yes, I mean, there are bank books, thousands of bank books that are housed in the National Archives in College Park, Maryland, and so outside of Washington, D.C. And many of these records, like the trustees' records, for example, have been put online with the National Archives. And so you can actually go online and look at the like trustees' minutes, and they're fascinating.
All right, you know what I'm about to ask you next.
Oh
What
no.
happened wrong? Where did it go wrong? Was it the greed? It grew too fast? Is there one person that people identify as the biggest crook in this situation? That
All
kind
of
of
the
thing.
above, yes.
Oh my God.
So yes, the bank won your first suggestion. Yes, the bank grew too fast. Um, so the bank again was established as a pure savings bank. It was not supposed it was supposed to be the type of financial institution that operated with the least amount of risk. Um, and so what happens is that once the bank's main office moves from New York to Washington, a new crop of trustees comes in, the most influential of whom was named Henry Cook. Now, Henry Cook was the brother of Jay Cook, and Jay Cook is known as a nation's first investment banker. And so he and his brother Jay and Henry Cook established what was known as Jay Cook and Company, and it's known as the nation's first investment bank. They make a lot of money during the war by selling war bonds. And so a union has to raise money essentially to kind of fund this war effort. And so the Koch brothers enlist a team of bond agents and they go out across the country and across the Atlantic to raise about $1 billion to
Ooh.
help with the war effort. In the process, they become incredibly wealthy and they become close personal friends to Lincoln, to Salmon P. Chase, who at the time was Treasury Secretary under Lincoln, but then is the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. They are incredibly well connected. And so Henry Cook joins the board in 1867. He becomes the chairman of the Finance Committee. Now, this is an important note. The Freedmen's Bank, as a savings bank, was supposed to operate with really no risk, right? The
When you say
trustees
no
were
risk, they're not investing in, they're not loaning money out to people. Is that what no
they
risk?
weren't supposed to loan money out
That's
to
what you mean by
people.
risk. I got you. I
Yeah.
got you. I got
They were supposed to deposit about a third of the bank's deposits into government bonds, and so very low risk
you.
investment
I got
products.
you. I got
Um, in April of 1867, once the main branch has moved to DC, Henry Cook approves of making the first illegal loan. That loan is for $1,000 to a man named D.L. Eaton. He owns his own construction company. He has contracts to provide the kind of red limestone for the Smithsonian, for Howard. And so he kind of helps to build Howard, but he receives $1,000 loan. About 10 days later, he joins the bank as its actuary, which is the person who is supposed to evaluate the risk profile of the bank's investments. And so it's illegal. It happens 2 years into the bank's operation. And this is the first of about $85,000 in illegal loans that the bank makes between April of 1867 and May of 1870. May
you.
of 1870 is when Congress approves of the bank amending its charter, meaning that it can kind of make those riskier types of investments, meaning mortgages and business loans. And so when that happens, all hell breaks loose.
Is it the Cook guy is the worst one, or this actuary joining that people say it was his fault?
Um, I think it's all of them.
Okay.
Cook being the most influential person, but there were kind of a cadre of business partners who propped him up and seconded his unsavory activities in terms of essentially
Okay.
plundering the bank and making illegal loans.
And as a result, does he go to jail for this? Is there any restitution, anything like that happen to the deposit?
No, so that's kind of the ending part of the story. But
Yeah,
kind of what happens is that in 1872, there are new trustees on the board, trustees who are more skeptical of Cook and the way that he's operating the finance committee.
yeah.
And they get together to kind of take him to task. It comes out later that he borrowed about $500,000 from the bank, and these trustees are saying like you have to pay up. He pays a little bit back, but he's basically booted off the board. We find out later that nothing happens to him. He is allowed to kind of go on his way. He is kind of reeling from the collapse of Jay Cook and Company in September of 1873.
Oh, his company, his own personal company collapsed.
Yes, Jay
Oh,
Cook and
yeah, yeah.
Company
God don't like
fails,
ugly, so
right?
that's
Yeah.
that's a moral of the story, right?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah. He and
okay,
his brother invested millions of dollars into what was at this time a really promising project, a transatlantic, a trans continental railroad.
okay.
And so they were having problems raising money for that project, such that they were over leveraged, could not pay their debts,
Oh, I
including
got
their
you.
debt to the Freedmen's Bank. So they declare bankruptcy, and this actually is the catalyst for what historians call the Panic of 1873, and it's essentially a financial depression.
Oh, really?
Hmm.
Man,
Hmm.
did the black people they lose all their money?
So Black African Americans were kind of making runs on the bank. The bank had been loaning out so much money that it actually didn't have enough in cash to ensure that depositors could access their money. Um, yeah, and so between 1873 and July of 1874, when the bank officially closes, African Americans are having a hard time getting the money in their accounts.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Do you have a copy of the book there?
Not on me.
Oh, I should have said that. Yeah, so we can see it. Now, what's the title of the book?
It is called Savings and Trust: The Rise and Betrayal of the Freedmen's Bank.
Yeah, that will all be in the. What was there a ha moment for you? Uh,
Mhm.
on two fronts. One is how great black people were.
Mm, mhm, mhm,
Yeah,
mhm,
and what said that ha moment? That they had that kind of money, or that they
mhm,
trusted the white people, or again to do the right thing, or
mhm.
that they were savvy. I'm giving you lead in.
Yeah. Well, I mean, from writing my first book, I never had any doubts that African Americans had this kind of experience with money and with finance, and we're bringing all of this experience that they had gained in slavery to their interactions with the bank. I'm not sure if I've said this in this interview yet, but accumulatively between 1865 and 1874, African Americans put about $57 million collectively into the Freedmen's Bank. That, and this is conservative, would be about $1.5 billion today. And
Where
so
did we
just
get the money from?
working, saving, finally
Working,
being paid for our labor.
yeah, but they had
Yeah.
that kind of money.
Yes.
Okay, let's do it this way. If you could percentage that to what the white community had on the same number of people, maybe
Mm,
we 10% of the money. I mean, how do we have that kind of money working
yeah.
as servants, laborers, things of that sort?
I mean, if you think about the fact that during the period of slavery, it was Black enslaved labor that contributed to the growth and expansion of American economic growth.
Love it,
Um,
love it.
right?
Yes.
Um, I mean, African American or the enslaved were by far the largest asset class in the US between 1820 and
Oh,
1860.
really?
Yes. Um, cotton exports were something like 60% of US exports in 1860. The vast majority of that grown by slave labor. And so, I mean, it's undeniable, and there are historians who kind of qualify this, but Black labor really helped to catapult the U.S. before the war to kind of global recognition. The majority of that coming from slave labor cultivating goods like cotton. And so if you think about kind of the economic promise, the economic potential of African Americans coming out of slavery, it totally makes sense. Um, and for the first time, many of them had the opportunity to truly benefit financially from their labor. Putting all of that together, then it's not at all surprising.
Uh, but again, I guess I'm trying to get to this point. But it's a small percentage then to the white people, or there's such a disparity between the rich white people and the poor white people.
I think that's probably it too.
Okay,
But I mean, again,
okay,
I think about just the economic potential of African Americans
I
coming out of
love it.
slavery. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I mean, kind of putting that into context with the initial success of the bank was just mind-blowing. And two, I mean, and I can't fully take credit for it, a colleague of mine kind of pointed this out when she was gracious enough to read the manuscript before it came out. She said to me that reading Savings and Trust kind of underscored for her the idea that kind of all of our political discourse, especially over the last 50 or 60 years, a lot of it has been about like Black underperformance, right? The reason why the racial wealth gap is how it is because African Americans have not learned to play this economic game. Um, but that's not true. And the history of the Freedmen's Bank shows that at this
I
period
love
of
it.
time, right, when
Yes.
African Americans were kind of free from the bonds, from the chains of slavery, they were so productive, saving so much money, buying land, providing for themselves and their families. And this is a concrete example of that.
Yes.
Um, and so if we can see that kind of traced throughout history, we know that that myth is false, that we are really talking about institutional pressures that have hampered the ability of African Americans to truly build wealth on par with their white counterparts.
I love it. Okay, one more, two more questions. So, but then as we go up the timeline, I like in my book, and I know you cite this in some respects, there were a ton of black-owned banks
Hmm.
that came on being
Hmm.
throughout the years. I
Hmm.
mean, what is your comparison in terms of the numbers? Give us a little bit of insight on how
Hmm.
many and that
Sure,
from from what had not forget about the Freedmen's Bank, but what we then began to do for ourselves in the
sure.
banking industry.
Well, I mean, after 1874, when the bank failed, most certainly after 1877, with the kind of formal end of Reconstruction, African Americans, Black communities were forced to kind of be inventive, be creative. And so we see the investment in kind of Black-owned financial institutions, both formal and informal. And so, but between 1880 and 1930, there were about 130 Black banks established in the US to serve Black communities, and that's incredibly important. And many of them didn't, unfortunately, make it through the Great Depression. But that kind of shows the fact that Black communities and Black folks were really invested in building up their own economic and financial lives within their own communities. And so I think that that's incredibly important.
Love it.
Um, and kind of a piece of this story that I think needs to be recognized.
Yes. This is good Black history.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, this is good Black history. You can tell this with no problem. I mean, it's other than what they did to us. There's always
Sure.
something like that. But
Sure.
it also, that's just a percentage of the resiliency and tenacity of us. Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, that's it. Well, how do people find you? I mean, do you have a website? And we're
I
going to put
do.
the description of how do they get the book? What's the name
Sure.
of the books? That kind of thing. Let's plug.
Sure. Savings and Trust is the name of the book. Savings and Trust, The Rise and Betrayal of the Freedmen's Bank. It is available hopefully at all of your booksellers,
Yes,
especially your Black booksellers.
yes,
You can find me online, JustineHillEdwards.com.
man. Uh, are you proud of yourself, aren't you? Because you, I mean, really, I mean, from where you come and all that you've done, you did realize you didn't slack,
Yeah.
and now you're on to something very special. Because I don't think too many people write about our Black history.
Mm.
The only other person, I should say the only, but the one person who really was pretty noted is the sister at the University of Texas, Austin.
Dinah Ramey Berry. No, she's at UC Santa Barbara now.
No, not her. She retired. She wrote a book
Oh,
about
yes. Oh my gosh. She
yeah.
she would
She
be so
kind of
good.
led the effort. I kind of think everybody talks about her,
Yes,
and
yes,
then you, yeah,
she wrote a book about Black business
yeah.
history. Juliet E.K. Walker.
That's right. Her.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
I met her one time too.
She's
And then
lovely. Yeah.
I was like I was meeting royalty.
I
I
know.
tell you,
No,
because she kind of started
she
it, and then
is a
yeah,
founder of this field of Black business history.
yeah,
And
she really
yes.
is. And then the other lady you just mentioned, what's her name?
Dinah Ramey Berry, she
Yeah,
is a historian of the African American experience. She used to be at Texas, but is now at UC
yeah,
Santa
yeah.
Barbara.
Yeah,
Hmm.
and then yourself, you and that big three, y'all, and so
I
on and so
appreciate
forth.
that.
And I'm a little man on trying to get there, but nonetheless, I think this is good that we talk about something that younger people can understand
Hmm.
that of our greatness, and that's what you've done. And I'm
Thank
so
you.
appreciative that you've done that. And so everybody hit the subscribe button on Strong Inspirations. This is, I'm telling you, I'm finding these people and I'm so happy because it makes me a better person.
I
And then hit the
appreciate it.
like button. There is no love button. Hit the notifications bell. Get notified new video and tell somebody about us. I gotta ask you this, even after I said that. Is there one question, a question that I have not asked you, something that you want to leave us with?
Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah,
There's I could talk about the Freedman's Bank all day. So I
yeah,
will
yeah,
leave
yeah.
leave it there and hopefully your listeners will go out and buy a copy.
Yeah, go buy a copy because she couldn't give away the book. Book thick too. It got so much information in it that it's and very well written. Everybody,
Thank you so much.
thank you for that. Go to her website, so on and so forth, and go to my website, everybody, and find out where I'm at. Da 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 da. And then also, I say this, and I mean this with all sincerity. I want you to stay strong, stay safe, stay on your grind. I love what you doing. You and the Black Panther and all that came in and said, I'm gonna be a revolutionary in my own right.
I love that.
I'm gonna fight for the cause. I'm an activist and I'm a scholar telling good stuff, enlightening
Hmm.
our mind, inspiring us. That's what you do.
Thank you so
That's a
much.
beautiful thing. I thank you so very much. I'll stay in contact because I do want to meet you one day too and shake your hand again because you came to Detroit and that's how I met her. Thank you for coming on, and I'll stay in touch.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.